Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. This is one of the last video blogs of the year. And one of the things that keeps coming up over and over again, other than the rise in GST, is the number of people who seem to be digitally arrested. Cybercrime has just gone through the roof, and nobody seems to know how to tackle it. In fact, if there's one area where you can't fault the government or the regulators, is for their tireless effort at warning citizens about cybercrime and cyber fraud. In fact, every regulator, banks, stock exchanges, depositories, every financial intermediary, telecom companies, National Payments Corporation of India, and finally the Prime Minister himself have been warning us and telling us what not to fall for. Most of it goes into spam, but the area that even the Prime Minister picked up for special attention was digital arrest. He cautioned people not to panic and to succumb to the threats in his radio talk, Mann Ki Baat. Yet, not a day goes by without the media highlighting at least one case. And believe me, these are not people who don't understand technology or who don't understand how systems work. In fact, people who ought to know better, engineers, IIT graduates, bureaucrats, judges, they are losing large sums of money to fraudsters. And this is sometimes their life savings because they're transferring all their funds. They are doing it themselves. In fact, the Prime Minister explained that there is no legal concept called digital arrest and that enforcement agencies would not ask for personal details over a call. Yet, time after time, what you hear is that victims are being arrested over a period of time, told to keep their mouth shut, going to banks, breaking FDs, and transferring all their money to fraudsters on the assumption that it's going to come back. These are fraudsters masquerading as cops or investigation agencies. Why is this happening? The reason is not hard to find. First, excessive warnings have turned into spam. So people are tuning out. They shouldn't. It is foolish, but it's happening. So now the focus needs to shift from quantity to quality. We're going to look at that a little more in detail, and that's why we're talking about it in this video blog. The second is people are so scared of arrest and the social stigma attached to it. This is exacerbated by the slow judicial process, mindless corruption, and the fact that all of us hear that enforcement agencies and the police treat people the way these fake cops are pretending to treat you. So it pushes people to panic and it pushes people to act irrationally. The third, which is what we should pay attention to, is the political environment over the last decade. In fact, the message over the last 10 years is nobody is safe, anybody can be arrested. Chief ministers have been arrested and released months and months later with the court saying that the charges were completely false and there was nothing to the arrest. This has happened to well-known personalities. So people think if this can happen to at least 4 or 5 chief ministers, and it happens to ministers, very respected social activists who have remained in jail for 4 and 5 years, some of them have claimed that there's data implanted on their phone, people think, why won't it happen to me? If data can be implanted on phones, which is what your FedEx frauds are all about, it is enough when you get a call to say that your parcel has been intercepted with drugs found in it or contraband. It's enough for you to panic because you know that getting out of it and proving that a charge is false is so extraordinarily difficult in India. And this is something that all of us need to pay attention to when we accept a system for what it is. So scammers and fraudsters are exploiting this environment to create well-crafted threats. These threats range from the fact that drugs, weapons, contraband has been found in your parcels, or that your bank accounts have been used for illegal activity. And then more sophisticated artificial intelligence is used to clone the face and the voice of your loved ones, your children, and you're told that they're either in danger, met with an accident, arrested for illegal activity, whatever, something that will cause mindless panic, especially when young children are involved or when someone talks about an accident. So even those with spotless records know that proving their innocence in India is such a Herculean task that the process is a punishment, and that punishment can go on for decades. So when someone dangles a carrot, which is what each fraud does, that follow what we tell you and we will make the problem go away. So when you transfer the money to them, they claim we are verifying your money, the source of it. You think you're innocent, you've transferred it. They even transfer a little back so that to gain your confidence. But I'm not going to talk about different kinds of frauds here. Moneylife Foundation held a seminar on 17 December. We had the best possible speakers explain it to you. Advocate Prashant Mali, the doctorate in cyber law and cyber warfare, and a lawyer. And we have Nandkumar Sarvade, a former IPS officer with tremendous experience in cybercrime. Now, Mr. Advocate Mali tells us that his clients have included, like I said before, engineers, technology experts, bureaucrats, and judges. This underscores the fact that cybercrime does not depend on whether you're educated or not, whether you read the papers or not. It exploits human emotions, fear, and panic, and a creation of urgency so that you don't think, you follow instructions, and you act as per those instructions. We are not going to catalog the endless number of cybercrimes. Believe me, there's a new one every week, especially with artificial intelligence. What you need to do is to start looking at the videos that we have put out on the seminar, Unmasking Cybercrime, Protect Yourself from Digital Threats, or we have a weekly column by my colleague Yogesh Sapkale called Fraud Alert. Can't be clearer than that. The list of columns is there on our website. You can look at a link here. What I'm going to focus on this time is why is it that all these warnings and advisories have failed? And what can be done to address the deeper psychological triggers that are exploited by cyber criminals to create this panic and urgency? Now, let's look at what the government says. The Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, it's called I4C because of the 4C, Cybercrime Coordination Center. This has reported that Indians lost 20,000 crore to cybercrime in 2024, and over 1.44 million calls were reported to 1930. This is a number you have to remember. It's a helpline. Even if anyone doesn't pick up, remember that number. You have to call it. There's no escape. More on that video that I talked about earlier, 1930. Now, of all these victims, 92,323 were victims of digital arrest alone. And believe me, these numbers are significant. They don't include people who have not reported the fact that they are victims. These are people who fall for dating apps, sextortion, and they're just too embarrassed to file complaints and are ready to let that money go. Alarmingly enough, I4C predicts that Indians could lose 1.2 lakh crore over the next 1 year alone to cyber fraud. Now, efforts to tackle are happening from the government. In 2022, I wrote about CyberSafe. This is an initiative of the Home Ministry. It links all kinds of police stations across India, about 5,000 of them, to ensure that one number that is used and reported on CyberSafe is not reused again. So once used on a cybercrime, it goes out of the system. At least that's what they promised us. In September 2024, the Home Ministry launched one more effort. It's called the Central Suspect Registry. It already has 1.4 million people suspected of involvement in cybercrime. Now, if the prediction of I4C is correct, and cybercrime is going to increase exponentially, then I think the Home Ministry has to do a lot more than what it has done so far. It has to be in mission mode to find a way to tackle this fraud at a macro level. Now, very clearly, you'll see that there are centers that have developed with expertise on cybercrime. They have call centers, they have phones, everybody is engaged and trained in cybercrime. This is a place called Mewat near Rajasthan, Jamtara, the whole national capital region near Delhi, Kolkata. Cybercrime gangs are so huge over there. They operate with vast resources, infrastructure, and call centers. Now, what is stopping the government from a coordinated crackdown on these operations? You tap phones, you're tapping them for everybody else. You have CyberSafe, you have this suspect list. Why isn't there a home ministry-led crackdown on these kind of centers so that they're just smashed and can't be set up again? Good question. I'm sure you also will have the question. We have no answers because obviously they are okay to allow the crime to continue. So, what would be the next best strategy? It is to train people to control their emotional responses when you get a fraud call, which is you don't panic, you think, you look for loopholes, you look through their perfected, smooth script and tone that they use, you are able to see through the aggression that they use when they're posing as enforcement agencies or fake cops with full backdrop of police stations. You should remain calm, not panic, and see through it. First of all, disconnect the call. It's the easiest solution, as everybody will tell you. If it's a call making threats, disconnect unless you get something in writing. But clearly, this is not working. So, Nankumar Sarvade, like I told you, he's not only a former IPS officer with vast experience in CBI and various kinds of fraud, but he's also the founder CEO of the Reserve Bank of India's information technology company. It was called Rebit. He believes that the best learning comes from experience. He calls it a hadsa. So unless you have experienced it and gone through it, it doesn't become a lesson. You don't learn from other people's example. So the best way, he says, is gamification. And this is like a version of mystery shopping. You want to check whether your employees are treating customers well. You pretend to be a customer and see how they behave with you. Similarly, you want to check whether people have understood cybercrime. You pretend that you're making someone a victim of cybercrime and see how they react. Are they willing to part with their password? Are they willing to transfer their money? It is a safe and controlled program. Obviously, can only be run by maybe a bank or an official government-led agency with full documentation. Victims who form part of this program, if they tend to succumb to it, if they do not disconnect, will have to be counseled, will have to be told that this is a fraud and point out to the mistakes they make so that they don't do it again. When Mr. Sarvade posted this on LinkedIn, Kavi Arya, an IIT professor, pointed out that this is a standard way of training military personnel, astronauts, and others. It will be a way to train you and me by simulation and design well-designed programs using artificial intelligence for public good rather than for cheating people, and of course implement it, as Mr. Sarvade says, at an appropriate scale. Now, who can do this? Who has the resources? Believe it or not, there are plenty of resources. They are our resources. People who haven't claimed money from bank accounts that have shut down or have been frozen and remained like that for 10 years. All this money goes to the Depositor Education and Protection Fund, and there are 78,000 crore rupees over there. A fraction of that interest can be used for a nationally scalable simulation program. If the RBI is interested, someone has to push them and make them do it. Because remember, fear factor is the greatest, where artificial intelligence is also used to frighten people. And especially when your loved ones are involved, you stop thinking. So you need gamification as a way to make you think and control your panic. What is clear is that the current strategy of bombarding people with generic warnings is inadequate. Even if those ads are wonderful, you watch them for some time, the great Pankaj Tripathi, very convincing, but nothing like a personal experience, as Mr. Sarvade says, and gamification. So immersive training to empower individuals to question and resist fraudulent tactics is a must. Cybercrime, remember, is not only a technological threat, it is a social and societal challenge that preys on fear, mistrust, and systemic efficiencies. Addressing it requires comprehensive, innovative solutions that make citizens confident and resilient. Now, each of you who are watching this probably thinks, I'm informed, but you have people who are your loved ones who are not. So please get into the act of insisting that the government does things that help everybody, not just you who are well informed, but those who are not. If you agree with this, please share this video so that we turn the heat on. Thank you so much.